I know where there's some, right here in the hall, clerk.
No, Molly, not in there. I have
The new parts have arrived from Voice of Music, audio enthusiasts. And there's the roller, and there are the rubber bits to go in here and hold the motor up so it's not flopping around like crazy. But before I put this back together, I need to work on this switch. This is the one that the speed selector, this goes like this inside, and the speed selector switch is thrown by this grommeted piece here, and that's fine, except that switch is really hard to throw. So what I want to do is a squirt of contact cleaner and lube in there and see if that helps. And once I've done that, I will talk about how these two switches work in combination. I've got that figured out. All right, we'll start with the grommets. You can see, or maybe you can see, right here, the motor had worn right down through whatever was left of the grommet and was rubbing on this part of the frame. When these go in, it's domed or beveled around this side, and that's what goes up. So they slide in the slot. Bevel up. Then the motor tucks in from underneath. Like that. Oops. Gotta get this part over here. Yeah. And you've got to have screws in your hands before you can put it away. Again, I was just looking at this screw. It has there's a screw, a spacer, as there should be, and then this washer. That washer might be the original one. It's hard to tell. I'm not yet convinced, but let's see if we can get this first one lined up with its screw hole. And started. I'll do this one next. Okay. Pardon my hand and arm. Now I want to slip this over the switch. All right. Now all we need to do is add one more. And then one more has this keep down on it. What it's doing is keeping that in place. There we go. Okay. That's in there much more securely than it was when it got here. And it works. That's excellent. Okay, we'll apply a touch of oil. A little bit of oil in this shaft. This is where this brass piece goes. And same bit of oil on this one because this is where the big drive wheel goes. The pinch roller, the capstan. I've seen about 15 names for these things. It goes right there. And this goes right there. When you now you can see, let me get you moved over here so we can see how the speed control works. When the selector is at 78, playing the regular tone arm on that side, and the platter is on here, it pushes the big roller into the direct drive from the motor right here. When it switches over to 33 1/3, it brings this brass piece in. And remember, there's a belt that goes around from the motor around this brass piece. So the brass piece comes in, and that's closer to the pinch roller, the capstan, and that's the one that drives the platter at a different speed, 33 1/3 RPM, hopefully. At the same time, it throws this switch. And this switch, it turns out, does a couple of things. Well, remember it's 78 RPMs. You're feeding records off the stack and you're using this tone arm. You switch it to 33 1/3, and you're switching to this tone arm. So two things have to happen. One is you have to route the output of this tone arm to the radio and disable that one. And that happens when you throw the switch. In 78, this output is disabled, and that one goes off to the radio to be amplified. The other thing that happens is on the radio itself is a radio change button, and that operates the changer mechanism. And when this is in 33 1/3, this changer mechanism is not supposed to work. It isn't supposed to be activated at all. So it disables that solenoid, as I was saying the other day. As I suspected, that's exactly what happens. The solenoid gets disabled. You can push the reject record or change record button all you want on the radio, and this won't do anything. It'll just keep playing that 33 1/3 that's sitting in here spinning around. So we've got this scoped out, and we've got the motor back in. We have the switch working. That all looks great. I've got a keeper I need to put back on there, along with this. One viewer said these little soft, flexible washers were for vibration dampening, which makes a lot of sense to me. And I presume it would go down in here, but there's one already there. There'd be no point, I don't think, in having it on top. Let me make sure there is one there. Oh, maybe it looks like there was one there. That's where I'll put this one. Okay, now it has a vibration damper where it should be. That goes on there. There. Okay. There's some soldering that needs to be done to reestablish the electrical connection underneath. I'll put this belt where it belongs for the moment. And I guess we'll have to run it later to see if the belt is still working okay. It sure got set in its position. But there, we've done it. We've lubed the motor. We understand why it has all those extra washers. Got this all back together. This is all working appropriately. So now it's time to turn it over and undo the underside. By the way, this you might have noticed that I turned this. I can never remember the name of what these are, and it'll come to me as soon as I stop recording. This was built to be moved, and I think it's so that you can put that 33 1/3 record on here without having it interfere with this thing. This is the hold down 4/78. When it's in this position, then you want it that way so that the record ejector can kick the next platter down. But when you don't want to do that, you just flip it over this way and you put the 33 1/3 on there that way. And that's a supposition on my part. I can't find anything in the documentation that says that's the way it works. But I believe that's the case. All right, I'll turn it over and we'll start looking at the other side. I have the original cap that was here and the original resistor. This is supposed to be 0.047 microfarads or 47 nanofarads. This is supposed to be 680 ohms. So let's take a look at them and see how far they've drifted off place with my non-expensive little ESR meter, which also measures resistance. Clever thing that it is. Also measures inductance as well. So here's the resistor. And it's 936 ohms. I checked that with a multimeter. It's the same. So that's pretty accurate. So it's supposed to be 680. It's 936. I didn't have a 680 on hand, so I replaced it with a couple of 330s just to get it closer to what it should be. And we'll see what that says. And 735, as close as I could get. Better than 900 and whatever it was. All right, let's take a look at this cap, which I have misplaced. Here it is. Now this looks like a mica cap, but I guarantee it is not. It's a mica mold. I can barely read it there. But a mica mold is actually a paper cap wrapped in plastic and color-coded as though it were a real mica cap, but it is not. This is a unreliable, well, maybe reliable the day it was installed, but not long-lived capacitors. And it should be 47 nanofarads, and it is in fact, and it is in fact 358 nanofarads with a loss of 12% and an ESR of 110 ohms. So this is not good, and that's why it's been removed. Let's just for cross purposes check the new one in circuit. And 48 nanofarads, which is what it should be, with no leakage. So I think we're good in that regard. The one other resistor in this turntable is over here, 100 ohm resistor, and it tests out just fine. So we'll leave that be. And that does it for the electronics part of this. I'm ready to move on to this suspicious gear, which makes me nervous. It tilts. So the first thing is to turn it back over and see if I can figure out how to get this plastic cabinet off. All right, a quick glance from above suggests that this is held on by one screw there. Am I setting this on? Okay. One screw there, one screw there, and one screw there. So we'll pull those guys and see if that's it. Oh, this is this wraps around and includes this stand for the green tone arm, the 33 1/3 tone arm. So I need to shift that out of the way. Like over here, tape it up. Last thing I want to do is break one of these, either one. They're kind of hard to replace, as you might guess. Okay. So there must be, yeah, there's a screw right there. One more screw right there, maybe two, looks like two from here. Yeah, that's looking loose now. No, okay. This is loose from the base, but there's something keeping it in there, and I realized that there's a panel right here that's a separate piece of plastic, and it has a rivet right there, so I'm guessing that this will pull off. Good guess. It has a spring that holds it to the primary shaft. There, so set that aside. And I'm going to remove my stand leg. And there we go. Put this back on. Now let's give this an eyeball. Well, you look at that. It's unclear to me how well this is coming through. Let me pull in a little light over here, maybe. Yeah. That definitely, the whole thing is built to go at an angle. This bracket is square to the base, but the entry point is further that way than this point. So the whole thing is built on a slope like that. So that's not a problem. That's the way it's made. Interesting. Very interesting. So this sloped gear is supposed to be sloped. I don't quite understand the reasoning for that yet. If you look also, this in this plate, this line right here, isn't quite parallel with the base either. So it's like they're changing the angle. Recall that there are a number of platters stacked up here. This is the one that changes 78s. There are a number of platters stacked up here, and it looks to me like they're trying to push this plate. I don't know if I can activate it or not, but there's a plate that comes out of here to push the next record off the stack, and so it falls down on the platter. And it looks to me like they've changed the angle so it's pushing up slightly on the edge of the record, which might be to clear this little step right here on the spindle. I don't know, but it's done on purpose. There's no doubt in my mind that that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. So while I've got this off, I will leave the plastic off in case we have to do anything. I'll polish it separately. But I'll take this plastic off, and I'll also remove this one that goes around the brown tone arm, if I can. Not sure that will come off without removing the tone arm itself. We'll see. But since I have this one off, the changer mechanism is filthy and needs cleaned up, so I'll do that off camera. I've cleaned this up. This, as I said, this is the record changer. Got a stack of platters sitting on the spindle here, on that little step. I don't know if you can see it right there, but it's a little step there. So a stack of records that high. They're resting right in front of this, right there, going around. And and this arm simply holds them down on this side so that the changer can strike them or push them correctly. On this tower right here is this cam-shaped piece. And this cam-shaped piece rotates around and pushes a record off. And that's what's connected to our big wheel that looks there. You can see it moving. That rotates around, pushes a record off, comes back to the ready until the next time when a record finishes or someone pushes the change record button on the tuner. My point is that this is gummy. This should be turning freely. It's really gummy. And the other thing I've discovered is this this can be lifted and shifted out of the way, so you can put records on there more easily, I guess. And it's gummy too. It turns very slowly. And what's happened is all the grease in here, not as bad as some, but all the grease in here has started to turn to varnish, I guess. So what that means is I was hoping to just be able to clean this up and move on, but the fact is that this tower needs to be taken apart. This changing mechanism needs to be taken apart and cleaned and put back together into some kind of working order. And when I look at the bottom, here, the bolts that hold this in place are under that wheel. That wheel has a couple of set screws, which I can get to pull it off. Then we can lift that whole thing out and I was going to say dismember it, but dismantle it once this wheel is off. Now, my great pain with these in the past is you'll see timing marks here. There's an arrow there and an arrow there, and if you don't put this wheel back on the way it came off in the same spot exactly, your timing will be off. So what I have to do is come up with a way to mark both the shaft here and the gear itself so that I can get them realigned and make sure I get it on there far enough, but not too far. It should go back exactly the way it came off. So the first thing among many first things is I need to take the chain off. So I'm going to save that for the next video. I'll turn it over, I'll show you how the chain comes off. We'll remove this wheel and we'll take this assembly apart and clean it up. But that's for next time. So take care out there. I'll see you.